And we are live. Guys, I'm very excited about this one. I have a guy here who is a walleye guide on the Winnebago system as well as Green Bay. Those are both in central Wisconsin. I love the fish, the Winnebago system, and going up there since I was a boy because I have family in Fond du Lac, which means bottom of the lake. I have none other than Chad Burns of Burnsy's Guide Service. How are you doing tonight, Chad?
I'm doing great, Jay. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, man.
I'm dreaming of open water fishing.
I bet you are. I bet you are up there in central Wisconsin, man.
Yeah.
I have also ice fished on Winnebago, but the heck with that, man.
Well, the ice is coming. We got the polar vortex coming, and it's definitely a late ice season. In fact, I was in the boat last week, which is the first time ever in my life actually being in the boat at the end of December. But it was awesome. It was awesome. But bring on some ice. So I'm ready. I have a lot of clients that want to get out and chase some perch and walleyes on Winnebago. So
yellow perch through the ice. Guys, if you've never experienced that, put that on your bucket list. Eating a yellow perch the day it was caught, that was caught through the ice, it's going to have firm meat. Oh, and I happen to think yellow perch are the finest eating there is in fresh water.
I couldn't agree with you more. There is honestly, they're one of those rare fish that even smell good when you're filleting them. So you know they're going to be good when you fry them or bake them or however you want to prepare them. But yeah, yellow perch, fresh yellow perch especially, there's just nothing better.
It's one of those things I don't even like to fry them because it just doesn't do it justice. You know, you can fry crappies, you can fry. Man, I hate to say this, but I love to eat walleyes too, but walleyes are such a special fish. They're such a special fish. I just don't like to kill them. That's just me being me. I grew up reading The End Fisherman or, Catch, Photo, Release.
Yep. Me too. Used to read End Fisherman.
Yeah. All of us guys who grew up north, we grew up with the Linder boys. And since they're from Illinois, that was just, wow. And they started out in Wisconsin, though.
Sure.
After Al got back from Vietnam, he moved to Wisconsin and became a full-time guide.
Yep. Yeah, I actually had the pleasure of meeting Al and Ron because I used to fish the In-Fisherman Professional Walleye Trail back in the day. So I actually met most of the Linder family back when they ran that tournament circuit.
What years did you fish that?
Oh, boy. Now you're going to make me think. And you're making me date myself, Jay. Thank you.
Well, I told you I followed the route as a writer in the late 90s,
So that would have been when I was fishing it. Late 90s to mid 2000s is when I would have fished it.
So you were probably there when I fished with Tommy Scarlett's on Winnebago in 98. You were probably there in 99 when I fished Little Bay to Knock with Ted Takasaki. And in 99, I was actually there and watched Ron Seelhoff win the championship in Madison. That's where I met Al Linder.
Yep. I fished that championship in Madison as a co-angler, actually, because I fished as a co-angler for 2 years, and then I fished as a pro for, I don't know if it was 5 or 6 years, but I was actually in the Madison championship tournament, but I was fishing as a co-angler, which was great.
Bet that was. Oh, we have a comment. It's Jonathan Marcelo Willie. He just said hi. Hey, Jonathan. Hello.
How you doing,
Thank
John?
you very much for commenting, man. I appreciate you coming. I appreciate you coming here and watching. So let's talk. So what you're going to be doing next? You're going to be dragging out your ice fishing stuff onto the lake. And are you one of those guys who might have 6 or 7 shanties out there?
That I am one of those guys. Unfortunately, this will probably be the last time I'm sitting in my boat for a while. When I get done with the interview with you, it's going to be time to cover it up, button it up, And it looks like hopefully maybe in about a week it'll be time to drag all the ice shacks out, all the ice gear out, and get started on our very late ice fishing season. So,
and that's primarily yellow perch.
So on the ice and I just got on the Winnebago system, Jay, during the ice fishing season. Literally, Lake Winnebago is about 60 yards from where I'm sitting right now. So it's
awesome.
easy. Yeah, it's easy to keep up on the ice conditions, which change daily, hourly. I always thought about maybe potentially going to Green Bay to guide on the ice. It's just a little bit too far for me to stay on top of it as far as the ice conditions. So I just guide ice during the ice season just on Winnebago, but open water I split between Winnebago and Green Bay. And when I'm out on Winnebago chasing fish, we're targeting perch number one. But while we're targeting perch, there's walleye swimming around, there's white bass swimming around, there's crappies swimming around. Pretty much everything, especially now that we're getting a late start this year, we're probably a solid 2 weeks behind for sure, if not 3. Everything will probably be out in the basin at this point. I don't know. I don't have any notes to compare to because we've always been on the ice at least a couple weeks before now. And we're still not on the ice. Lake Winnebago today is still pretty much wide open, which is incredible. So, but I'm excited. I'm excited to get out there. I got a lot of want to get out there and start chasing perch and chasing walleyes, and we'll see what happens. Mother Nature dictates all. So.
Todd. Good, very, very good friend of mine. Todd said, does he guide ice fishing? Yes, Todd, he does guide ice fishing.
Yes, I do.
You know Todd?
Every day. I don't think I do know Todd. But hi, Todd.
He's a very dedicated ice fisherman. I mean, this guy, 1 week he'll be in North Dakota, then he'll drive up to Saskatchewan to do some ice fishing. Last year, and I think he went out to Nebraska and caught some just absolutely world-class perch.
Nice.
I mean, the pictures of perch he sent me, I've caught a lot of perch in the Great Lakes, particularly in southern Lake Michigan, and those things just look like genetic freaks.
Yeah. Yeah, Jay, and the perch fishing on the Great
He said
Lakes,
he has no problem hiring a guide for new water.
Perfect. Give me a call, Todd. I'd love to have you. Yeah, Lake Winnebago is not, if you've never been on Lake Winnebago or don't live relatively close to Lake Winnebago is not a place to go out and not know what you're doing and where you're going. The ice changes all the time. It's such a massive, it's so expansive, shallow. We get a lot of pressure cracks out there. We got bridges that we use to cross these pressure cracks that we're moving all the time. And you really got to know where you're going out there. People get in trouble out there almost every year, which is not a good thing. So yeah, somebody who's coming to Lake Winnebago to ice fish for the first time, I mean, unless you have a friend that really knows it well or whatever, hiring a guide is it's a good investment, and it's just smart. It really is. Even I went to Saginaw Bay a few years ago, Jay, and I consider myself an extremely seasoned ice fisherman. I have fished on Lake Winnebago almost my whole life, but I still hired a guide for Saginaw Bay because I don't know. I don't want to get in trouble on Saginaw Bay, so I hired a guide. So just smart.
Also, if you're going to a new body of water, you don't want to have to spend your entire vacation searching for that first fish, so hire a guide, take 3 years off your learning curve, be safe. There's so many great reasons to hire a guide. I guided for 17 years, man. That's exactly how I sold it. If you just want to whack fish, I'll take you out there. If you want me to teach you, I can do that too. And if I'm teaching you, I'm going to take 3 years off your learning curve just by spending 1 day on the water with me.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I've done that on numerous bodies of water. I mean, when I go to a new body of water, especially if it's a very expansive body of water, Devil's Lake, that comes to mind, Lake Oahe, Lake of the Woods, Hiring a guide the first time or second time or third time, like you just said, Jay, it takes at least 3 years off the learning curve. And it's fun to go out there and be successful right out of the chute and learn what works, because every system is different. So
what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask him why guys, if you're hiring a guide, ask him, why are the fish here? And he's going to explain that to you. And then you can go looking for similar situations on Lake Winnebago. There's everything there, man. You can do open water trolling. You can go to small rivers. You can go to the smaller lakes. You can jig. You can pitch. You can do this with long rods in the cane beds. There's all kinds. You can fish rock reefs.
Right. That's
so much fun.
That's the awesome part about the Winnebago system, Jay, is it's not just Lake Winnebago. It's the lake, it's all of the rivers connecting all the lakes, and then you've got Lake Winneconne, you've got Lake Butamore, you've got Lake Poygan, the Wolf River, the Fox River, you got, and like you were touching on, you got reefs, weed beds, cane beds, bridge. I mean, there's just a million ways to fish the Winnebago system pretty much the entire year. So there's certain times of the year things produce better than others, or certain spots produce better than others. But Lake Winnebago is such a diverse fishery. It's so much fun to fish. It really is.
Todd made another comment. He said it's massive. He drove by it when he was working the ice show in December. Todd travels around all winter long. I don't know how he has a job, but he does. Because the entire ice season he's gone. I mean, I envy the guy.
Sure.
Anybody who gets to fish that much and still holds down a full-time job, that was like me in my 20s.
Sure. Yep. Oh, yeah.
Now that I'm in my 50s, I have slowed down.
None of us were getting any younger, Jay. That's for sure.
No, I'm definitely not getting any younger. But okay, so let's talk fun stuff. Please, Todd, I'm not saying ice fishing isn't fun. But open water season. When do you? Okay, so of course the ice goes out the different times every year. What's the first thing you start targeting?
Walleyes out of the chute. Walleyes right away. Typically, it's straight up to the Green Bay tributaries and around the tributaries, chasing strictly trophy walleyes. Whether we're fishing the far southern part of the bay, down by De Pere, or out in the lower part of the bay, and then I basically chase that bite as it progresses to the north. Because the fish spawn first in De Pere, next it's Oconto, the East Shore, and it just goes all the way up to Marinette, and that's typically about a 6-week span. 6 sometimes.
That's Green Bay. I remember driving up there, taking off from DeKalb, Illinois, driving 6 hours up to hit De Pere, fishing till noon. I get there about 6, fish there till noon, fill up our coolers, drive back home to DeKalb, Illinois, and be home by 6 o'clock at night.
Sure. It's the same. De Pere is one of those places that always opens typically first. It's typically the first spot I put my boat every year. It's chock full of fish when the ice comes off, and it's just a blast. It's a good spot to go scratch the itch after not being in the boat for a few months, and you never know when you're going to catch a 30-incher. That's the best part. So
shallow water jerk baiting.
Yep, jerk bait, ripping wraps, blade bait, shiver minnows, hair jigs, plastics. I mean, you name it. I'm not a live bait guy. Once in a great while, I'll live bait my boat, especially during the perch season when I'm chasing perch on Winnebago. But other than that, very rarely will you see any type of live bait in my boat.
I mean, how much fun is that to be casting a big old jerk bait and do this, and all of a sudden it just stops, and like, damn it, I'm snagged again. All of a sudden, boom, boom, boom.
Especially when it's a big one, it's like hitting a brick bait. Except
those big old walleyes, man, the lure just stops.
Oh yeah.
So I always think, because I have a very negative mind. So if you're fishing De Pere, you're gonna lose jerk bait. So you might as well go up there with 20 of them and expect to bring back 2.
Sure.
And but when that first couple head shakes, bam, 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 guys, Call Chad. I love that. The big speckled trout down here do the same thing. They just grab onto the lure and they stop. But then when you pull back, they start shaking their heads just like a walleye. It's like, oh, I remember that.
Yep, it's fantastic, especially, we obviously can battle some adverse conditions in the springtime, but you know what? When you set the hook into a 25 plus inch walleye and you reel it in, all of a sudden the conditions don't seem to matter so much anymore.
You're on the river. It's not like you're on. Well, when I would go up there, I would be on the river, and
Yep,
it's not like you're going to have 5-foot rollers, or it's not like you're going to be on the washing machine where waves are hitting you from 3 different directions.
correct. Yep.
And that's Green Bay, guys. Well, I guess Winnebago can get brutal as well, but
Oh yeah, Winnebago definitely has its days. The nice part about the Winnebago system, Jay, is if the wind is blowing on the Winnebago system, regardless of what time of the year it is, there's typically somewhere you always can go on the Winnebago system to get out of the teeth of the wind and still have a successful day on the water. So that's one plus side of the Winnebago system. Where on Green Bay, if it's blowing north or south on Green Bay and you are out on the bay itself, it can be rough and there's really nowhere to hide. So
there's nowhere to hide, and then you have to get back.
Correct.
And I've had some hairy. All of us have had some hairy rides back to the boat ramp. And back in the days when the GPS wasn't that good, and all right. I'm coming up. Where's the boat ramp? I'm sure you remember those days. GPS wasn't that good.
Oh yeah. But the nice thing is, I run a 620 Ranger.
Yes.
Only a year old. They've made so many great modifications in these fiberglass boats today with hydraulic seats, a much deeper hull. These boats are built for big water. I mean, is it going to be extremely comfortable if we're out in 3-4 foot waves? No, there's no boat you're going to be in that's going to be extremely comfortable, but it's a lot better than it was 15 or 20 years ago. That's for sure.
Exactly. All right, let's talk about summer on the Winnebago system. What is your favorite way to target walleyes?
So my favorite way to target walleyes basically all year, but summer included, is power fishing. With the advent and the progression of forward-facing sonar, power fishing, casting, aggressive, really targeting walleyes and going after them is definitely my most favorite way to fish for walleyes. I love casting shiver minnows. Number 1 is shiver minnows for sure. Number 2 and 3, probably tied, is probably ripping wraps and blade baits. And probably not far behind that is a hair jig, because hair jigs just work all the time. The fish can be negative, the fish can be positive, and hair jigs just work. I mean,
that is old school, man. I love, back in the 70s, I used hair jigs for everything.
Yep.
I had little hair jigs for crappies and perch, and I had big hair jigs for walleyes, and even bigger hair jigs with the look like they just took a cheap plastic worm out the back of it and called it a bucktail.
Yep. And it's really had a massive resurgence in the last 5 to 7 years, I would say. Hair jigs kind of got forgotten about for a while.
They did because everybody jumped on on soft plastics.
Yep.
Wagon, including me.
Yep.
And I certainly.
We all kind of started going towards the plastic thing, and
they just plain caught fish.
Correct, and they still do. I mean, I still throw plastics a ton. And the nice thing with plastics, they work all year. They work in the spring, they work in the summer, they work in the fall, they work ice fishing. I mean, plastics work. They definitely work. But my favorite way to fish for them is to power fish. I love being aggressive. It's definitely the thing I get the most requests for is people want to learn how to cast shiver minnows. People want to learn how to use forward-facing sonar, because it's fun learning the forward-facing sonar, seeing those fish on your screen, seeing your bait fall down to the fish, and then trying to figure out what bait and how you got to work that bait to get that fish to bite.
See, you just said that what you just said, that's it. You know, guys like me and you, we have 40 years of fishing before forward-facing sonar.
Correct.
We know how to catch fish. We know how to search for fish. With shoot, when you and I first started, we had the Lowrance green box. And Todd, you asked if can you eat those fish out of the pier? I certainly ate a lot of them.
Absolutely, you can. Yeah, they did just to answer Todd's question, they did a 15-year dredging project into pier to clean that up. And yeah, the fish out of the pier are perfectly fine to eat.
Yeah, I certainly ate a lot of them even before that. And I'm not going to say I'm fine, but I'm still here.
Well, I ate for that, so
you ate a lot more than I did, yeah, because you got to go more than like 4 times a year. When I went, it was a suicide run.
Sure.
Man, so you're casting shiver minnows, you're casting lipless crankbaits, you're casting. Man, you need a lot of different attributes in a rod to be able to work those baits.
Yes,
and not only do you have to have sensitivity in order to feel something like particularly your hair jigs. You know, when you're working that in waves, you're working that in current.
Yep.
And just rear back and set the hook on a 28-inch walleye. They have tough mouths. Man, you have to have a superior rod to do that. What do you use?
So what I use is Razor rods. That's the brand that I've used for years now. For the power fishing side of things, the one rod that I've got sitting here is a 7-foot. I don't know how well that label will show up on there, but it's a 7-foot medium action platinum spinning rod. I got a Daiwa Tatula reel on there, which is an all carbon.
You are a man after my own heart, man, because that's what I use as the Daiwa Tatulas.
Yep, and they are fantastic. The nice
and
thing,
laser rods.
yeah. Right? Well, and the thing is, you know, if you're going to buy a superior rod or a very good high-end rod, the last thing, you know, and it's a common mistake that people make. They'll spend $300, $400, $500 on a rod, and they'll put a $35 10-pound boat anchor on the end of it. It totally defeats the purpose of having the rod. So if you're going to buy a good rod, like a Razor rod, put a good reel on it. It's so important. I mean, the rod weighs nothing. You should find one of the lightest put on there too. And that's the nice thing with the Tatula. It's all carbon. It's super light. It's a fantastic combo. And this 7-foot medium platinum, it's got just the right backbone in the right spot for casting shiver minnows and casting blade baits and anything that you're fishing more aggressively, you know, like a number 7, number 6 rip and wrap. It's just my go-to rod. It has been for years. It's what I use in just about every YouTube video that I do. I can't say enough good things about it.
Could you show those guides close up?
Sure.
You have to be within like, I usually have something. Right. Okay, I'm going to go ocean fishing this weekend.
Yep.
You have to be really close. Look at those guides, guys. You know, I don't have really nice rod lockers to keep my rods in. I'm really careful with my rods, but those guides are made so well.
Yes.
They're not going to crush like I've crushed a lot of guides in my past. I am hard on fishing equipment. I set the hook hard. I cast hard.
Right.
And
well, the other thing, Jay, too, with guides, and one of the more problematic things with some rods out on the market today, with the fact that so many of us are using a braid line like I do. I use Suffix 832.
Yes.
You know, not ermine or nothing. It's just the braid line that I like to use. It seems to cast the best out of all the braid lines. But what happens is these braid lines, after use and fight and fish, they end up starting to cut into your guides.
Oh,
And
I
it's,
remember that back in the day.
yep,
Just looking
yep,
at my rod, there's like 15 different grooves in it now.
problem
What?
out there today. I just was talking to a guy at a sports show who was having problems with, a rod that his braid was always cutting through his eyelets or his guides. And yeah, having a quality guide, especially now that so many of us are casting braid, is one of the most important parts of the rod, because it can cause you the most problems when they fail.
Yes. Yes.
So
If your guides fail, the rods fails.
correct.
Exactly. Just and razor rods are made by Jim Grant,
Yep.
Grant Industries, Grant Rods, and every rod that Jim Grant makes is a work of art. I have many Grant rods. I have many razor rods, and I'm spoiled.
Right. Meeting the founder of Razor Rods, Rick LaPointe back in the day,
Yes.
was true, honestly, a blessing for me, because I was looking for a good rod. I was constantly replacing rods. Guides were breaking. Whatever component of the rods, I was trying to find a rod. If I can find a rod that I can put in my boat when I'm on the water about 220 days a year, that's going to withstand the use and abuse that my equipment gets and
Yes.
not break, fail, it's going to last the average fisherman or even the above average fisherman for years and
They
years
do.
and years. And I've got razor rods that are 12 years old that I still use on a daily basis that work fantastic. So,
You're exactly right. Because down south where I live now, we have a saying: "It's hook sets are free." And
mm-hmm.
I have seen lesser rods and got when he puts everything he's got into that hook set, and I have seen rods shatter under that.
Oh yeah, me too.
No, I don't set hooks that hard. I shouldn't lie. It depends on the fish.
Come on now, Jay. Don't tell me you don't set the hook hard.
It depends on the fish. If I'm fishing for crappies, if I'm fishing for trout that have soft mouths,
Right.
if I'm fishing for a redfish, they have mouths like a carp, and you really got to set that hook. Even though I use kale hooks, which are almost identical to circle hooks. Even if I'm using a circle hook, I can't help myself. I'm not going to lie.
Yep. No, I know. And like I said, as I have transferred everything over to razor rods, that's the only rod I even own anymore at this point, with the exception of a couple ice fishing rods, because razor rods doesn't make an ice fishing rod.
Sure.
So like I said, that 7-foot medium platinum for more power fishing, the 7-foot medium light max or platinum for hair jigs, vertical jigging, or the 6.6 medium light in any of those series is good for vertical jigging, hair jigs. And then obviously we have all of our ultralight rods that are fantastic for pan fishing, which is all I use for perch fishing now.
Oh yeah, man. You need superior sensitivity for perch.
Right.
Wow.
I mean, we much have a rod for everything at this point. I mean, we have our saltwater line, our inshore series. I mean, you name it.
I have one of those inshore fish.
I know.
And man, I love that for reds. It's sensitive enough. I can cast. I use a lot of these rigs. There's a 1 ounce. It's got a wire leader with a 1 ounce weight on it, with a couple of beads that make some noise, and I can cast that 1 ounce a country mile. How far can I cast it? I don't know. I've never measured it, but I can cast it as far as I want. And with that inshore series, also if I want to cast it, that way, and then walk it down in the current, I can still feel the moment that sinker stops bouncing down. That's when it's time to set the hook. If it stops bouncing in a full tide, when the tide is ripping, it means a redfish picked it up. Because sometimes the redfish will try to take your rod away from you, and sometimes they just sit there and they're a fantastic fish. I love everything about it.
right? Redfish can definitely at times be a very fickle fish, a very light biter. And same with, whether it's walleyes, perch especially, can be extremely, extremely fickle, where having a super, super sensitive rod is so important so you can feel everything. The braid obviously helps you feel everything. It transfers everything to the handle of that rod going through all your guides. It's just, I don't know, I can't say enough.
That's another reason I like razor rods. Is I can use mono. I can use mono down in the marsh, 20-pound mono, and I actually prefer to use the mono because it has some stretch to it. So when I set the hook as hard as I can, I can still feel bites.
Sure. Yep. Yep. Same with our panfish line. I mean, I use strictly monofilament on all of my perch rods, and you can feel everything on those perch rods. Everything. Same with the trolling rods. That was one rod I was probably the most skeptical of when it came to the razor rod lineup. I'm like, how can a trolling rod make a big difference as far as feel? And then I started slowly switching my trolling rods over to the razor rod trolling series and the E-glass line. And I could not believe the difference in what I could feel when I was reeling in a fish with a razor rod trolling rod. I couldn't believe it. I was absolutely shocked.
Also, something that a very sensitive trolling rod will give you is when you're sitting there watching those rods, you know how they're sitting there going like this, and all of a sudden it starts going like that. Well, you might have you might have picked up a small piece of vegetation there.
Yep.
Where if you were using a Shakespeare, you wouldn't get it. It would just go like this, and you wouldn't have gotten this in the first place.
Right. Yeah, it's like I said, I can't say enough good things about them. For the folks out there that haven't checked out razor rods, I mean, we'll be at 3 more sports shows this year. We got Columbus coming up. We got Cincinnati coming up. We got Madison coming up yet. We were just down in Collinsville last weekend. I just swing by the booth, check out a razor rod, and our slogan is "Feel the difference." And boy, there is definitely a difference. There is no doubt about it.
The last thing I'd like to talk to you about is shiver minnows. I have never used a shiver minnow.
You have never
used
a shiver?
Well, I moved away in 2011. I moved to Alaska, then I moved down south. But tell me, what is a shiver minnow?
So I'm going to go away from the screen 1 second. I'm going to grab them because they're actually in my boat.
He's going to grab them. This is fantastic, man. Guys, I really hate it when I completely miss out on a brand new minnow like this.
Those are shiver minnows. Shiver minnows, jigging.
Okay.
I mean, it's basically a glide bait. These are most
a glide bait. Okay.
Yep, I think all of these are shiver minnows. Yeah, these are all shiver minnows in this box, but I've also got some jig and rapalas. Acme makes the hyper hammer or hyper rattle, whatever it is. There's a few of them out on the market, and they're just they're basically just a big chunk of lead with a treble hook on the bottom and a hook on the back with a fin on it. And what it does when you snap this thing up, because you snap them, you can either vertical jig them or you can cast them. Most of the time we're casting them. And we'll cast these things. You can obviously cast them a country mile because they're so heavy. And you basically snap jig them back. You snap it, and what it does is it lifts that bait up off the bottom, and then that fin that's on the tail, that bait goes like this, and it darts back down off to the side, and fish see that, and they react to it and attack the bait.
Wow.
That's why we call it power fishing.
Okay.
Aggressively, There's days where you'll fish a shiver minnow not as aggressive. Some days you only can get them to react to a real aggressive snap, and then some days they want a half of a snap. Basically you got to give it a little bit of a snap, because if you drag this thing across the bottom with a treble hook on it, you're going to be snagged. So you have to make sure to pop it a little bit. You want to make sure it's hopping across the bottom. You don't want to be doing any of this. But yeah, they're so much fun to fish with. I can't tell you thousands of fish I've caught on shiver minnows in the last 5 years, but it's definitely in the thousands.
Who makes those?
So Moonshine, which just got bought out by Acme.
Okay.
They make the shiver minnows. Rapala makes the jig and Rapala.
The jig and Rapala has been around forever.
Yeah, the jig and Rapala. And the thing is, all it is you're, instead of using a small one, you're using a bigger one that you can cast.
1 year I saw Chief Pompano down on the Illinois River. You're talking like the late 90s. Yep. And he told me that, he said, I've been trying to get people to use these for years. And he showed me, I said, that's just a jig and Rapala. He said, just a jig and Rapala. Have you ever used one? I said, no. Said, huh. And him, he just kind of walked away.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, like you're kind of talking, Jay, the jig and Rapala has been around for a long time. But as this forward-facing sonar has evolved and the rods have evolved with this, because obviously you need a rod with a strong enough backbone to snap jig a 1 ounce piece of lead, and it's just all come together, and now you can really attack and go after these fish with these aggressive presentations. So a good friend of mine, just a quick sidebar, a good friend of mine who owns Fishtails here in Oshkosh, Corey, he paints all of my baits for me. He does all my shiver minnows, does all of my crankbaits, everything. He's a bass fisherman. He owns a bait shop on Lake, but he's a bass fisherman. So I took him out shiver minnowing a few years ago for the first time ever, and the first walleye he set the hook into, he literally was hooked. And he absolutely, because he's a bass guy. He likes fishing aggressively for bass.
Yes.
Where 20, 30 years ago, the adage always was, well, you don't fish aggressively for walleyes. You use Lindy rigs and you use slip bobbers and and not that those presentations don't
or you go like this.
Yeah. Yep.
With the jigging rod in each hand.
Yep. And not, like I said, not that those presentations don't work, because they do work. But if you can be aggressive and go after them instead of waiting for negative fish to bite, it's a lot funner. A lot funner.
I completely agree with you. That's why my favorite bite of the year was always the Easter bite on the tributaries of Lake Michigan. Like Holland, Michigan, Eau Gray, Michigan, Tawa City, Michigan, Oscoda, Michigan, where we would cast sinking rapalas and reel them real fast.
Yep.
And just like I told you with the pier,
Yep.
Because this was a few years later when I really learned how to use a jerk bait.
Sure.
Man, yep. I'm sure it's the same way with the shiver minnows.
It is.
You're popping it. All of a sudden, next time you pop it, and this thing, I'm snagged again.
Yep. Yep. And that's exactly what it is.
Boom, boom, boom.
You're popping it. All of a sudden, you go to pop it and you can't lift it. That's because a fish is sitting on top of the bait.
That's fantastic, man. Well, hey, it's 40 after the hour. Chad, I had a great time talking to you, but do you have any shout outs you'd like to do?
Well, so first of all, thank you, Jay. I think this is the 5th or 6th, or I don't even know what number.
Oh, darn. We lost Chad.
Sorry.
Oh, he's back.
I'm back.
We lost you there for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, you were saying this is the 5th or 6th time.
Somebody was trying to call me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thank you, Jay, for having me back on again. You are fantastic to talk to, like always.
Thank you.
You know, a big happy New Year, to everybody. Thank you to all my sponsors for all of their support. You know, whether it's Razor Rods or Qualms or I'm not going to go down the whole list of sponsors, but everyone is just as important as the other. My clients, my family, my friends. It's been an awesome ride in this industry. I can't wait to see where it goes from here, whether it's on the electronic side of things that are behind me in the boat, or as they keep refining the forward-facing sonar, boat technology, rod technology. I mean, things have changed so much in the last 10 years in the fishing equipment side of things, whether it's the boat, the electronics, the rods. It's been so fun to watch and be a part of all these things that have changed mostly for the better. I'm looking forward to see where the next 10 years go. And I hope I'm sitting right here in the next Ranger boat having another podcast with you, Jay, because you're a great asset to this industry. So,
well, thank you. I do appreciate you saying that.
You're welcome.
Well, hey guys, first of all, I'd like to thank Chad for taking time out of your very busy schedule. I know you're getting ready to go ice fishing now, and that's a whole lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
But guys, thank you all for tuning in to the Let's Talk Fishing video podcast. I appreciate this. I can't do this without my viewers. I can't do it without people like you, Chad. But guys, it's Wednesday night. Make your plans to go fishing. Get out there, have some fun, learn some things, catch some fish. Because take it from me, you only get to do this once, and time goes fast.
That is a fact.
With that, I'm going to end the podcast. Chad, please stick around. I'd like to talk to you afterwards.
Okay, sounds good.